A summer morning 3 years ago this month in Prescott, Arizona.
Monday morning at about 4 or 5 a.m.
Her friends had called to say their 24-year-old daughter, Kayla, had gone missing.
They called us and said, you know, they weren't really concerned, don't worry.
Marcia and Carl Mueller soon learned from Kayla herself that there was plenty to worry about.
My name is Kayla Mueller. I need your help. It's very terrifying here.
And then it went blank.
Kayla had been captured by one of the most brutal terror groups the world has ever known, ISIS.
You just go into almost a catatonic state, I think. You just can't even stand up.
Carl owned an auto repair shop. Marcia, a former nurse. Nothing prepared the Muellers for what was about to happen. The scary, secret world they were about to enter.
This kind of thing tears people apart.
As the world would later watch the brutal murders by ISIS of 3 young American men.
I'm Barack Obama.
The plight of a 4th American hostage, Kayla, was kept a closely held secret.
Obviously, the White House doesn't want this to all come out.
Tonight on 2020, the Muellers are coming forward to tell the story of how they fought for Kayla's freedom.
Kayla is not your enemy.
The messages and emails with ISIS in Syria and the Muellers in Arizona, never seen or heard before tonight.
Sir, I am coming to you with a mother's heart for the love of her daughter.
Would your staff negotiate for Kayla?
And the people the Muellers now say failed their daughter, including prominent humanitarian organizations and the Obama administration.
The president could have been a hero, and he chose not to be.
Look at her. There's our little girl. So we're gonna name her Kayla. Kayla? That's a pretty name.
Hey, Kayla. We weren't supposed to have Kayla. You know, we were told no children, and suddenly, you know, we're going to have this young little girl. She was a really happy little kid and loved living, loved being in the world. And
She taught herself languages. She taught herself how to play the guitar. She taught herself how to write music. She was very intelligent, very intelligent.
I hope I never forget that everything happens for a reason and that nothing should be a regret.
She just always had such a compassion for everybody around her.
Kayla felt suffering in her heart, and it was as if it just seemed natural. She was supposed to help.
After college, Kayla was drawn to the Middle East. Much like the young Syrian boy whose image caught the world's attention this month, there were thousands of children who Kayla sought to help.
And she met the Syrian man who was there.
His name was Omar. And Kayla joined him in the ancient town of Antakya, or Antioch, in Turkey, about a half-hour away from war-torn Syria. Amidst a local celebration at the Antakya airport, we met up with 2 of the people who worked with Kayla and became her close friends, a mother and daughter, Aruba and Hala Barakat.
You hear that there's an American who has left everything, and she came just to help out refugees and Syrians in particular. That was very inspiring, honestly.
Many Syrians live there.
The Barakats helped us to retrace Kayla's steps in the neighborhoods where she worked, with women and children whose husbands and fathers had been killed or left behind.
And was she making a difference in the lives of people here?
Yeah, just saying Kayla's name in front of them, they smile.
As long as she stayed here in Turkey, Kayla's parents were confident she was safe. Safe until Omar asked her to go along on a quick trip across the border into Syria to the city of Aleppo to help him install communications equipment for a hospital run by the humanitarian group Doctors Without Borders.
I told her, no, you shouldn't go.
You tried to talk her out of it?
Yes. I told her it's very dangerous.
She was like, don't worry, we have a lot of people with us. We'll just go, you know, like fix everything in the hospital and then come back.
It was at a time when safety concerns in the region were mostly about the cruelty of the Syrian government, not ISIS.
At that time, ISIS wasn't even heard of. It was just the Assad regime. And I said, Kayla, this is not your war, and these are not your people. You don't need to die for this.
Kayla and Omar crossed into Syria at this border checkpoint. At that time, no other humanitarian aid worker had been kidnapped. It was August 3rd, 2013. And less than 24 hours after leaving here, Kayla Mueller would be plunged into what can only be described as a hell on earth.
My dear, dear Kayla, it has been 2 days and 5.5 hours since we received the call that you were missing.
Every day that Kayla was missing, her mother, Marcia, would go into her daughter's empty bedroom and record the day's events. So when Kayla came home, she would know what had happened.
We are staying strong and positive for you, and we are asking God for a miracle and counting on it.
My name is Kayla Mueller.
But her parents saw the fear in her face
I've been here too long and I've been very sick.
when ISIS sent this 10-second video as proof they were holding her.
It's very terrifying here.
No one yet knew or could even imagine just how brutal ISIS could be to its hostages.
Fear. It's fear of unknown. You don't know what is going to happen.
As her fellow female hostages now describe it to 2020, it looked something like this. ISIS was holding Kayla in a 12-foot by 12-foot room with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling.
There was a little bit of light coming by this small vent, but that was it.
It was cold, dirty.
Kayla had been in captivity for 6 months when ISIS brought in 3 more female hostages.
They gave us black abayas, dresses, and niqabs to cover our heads and faces.
And always in the background,
There was this music, the jihadi songs, and they played on and on and on.
for the first time tonight, 2 of Kayla's former cellmates, Frida Saeed and Patricia Chavez, are talking publicly about what happened to Kayla and them at the hands of ISIS.
We realized that they were actually killers, that they would enjoy killing us.
We brought the 2 women together in Stockholm, Sweden, where Frida now works. Both women were staff members for Doctors Without Borders, kidnapped after Kayla. The prison they shared with Kayla was located outside the ISIS headquarters city of Raqqa, in what they thought was an oil refinery, in this building in the complex. Kayla was happy to have company when they arrived,
She'd been kept mostly in isolation.
but still holding out hope.
She was amazing. She was a really strong girl.
She had a strong faith that gave her a lot of strength.
Do you think Kayla was treated any more harshly because she was an American?
I think it was clear that they hated Americans more than other nationalities, yes. They would scream at her and they would, blame her for everything that America has done in the world.
And I'm back because of your arrogant foreign policy towards the Islamic State.
Their ISIS guards were led by the British recruit who would later be dubbed Jihadi John, as he carried out the beheadings and murders of at least 10 hostages. The hostages called him and the 3 other British guards the Beatles, but there was nothing fun about them.
They caused so much pain to me and to others.
Sometimes taking the women to another room alone, shining a bright light in their face and demanding sensitive, personal information. An emotional low point.
It was important not to break in front of them. But then, behind closed doors, we had our moments.
At other times, Kayla was taken to the room next door where the male hostages were being held, paraded in front of them by Jihadi John. Hostage Daniel Rai, a Danish freelance photographer, recalls how Kayla stood up to the brutal ISIS guards.
One of the Beatles started to say, something, oh, this is Kayla and she's been held all by herself and she's much stronger than you guys and she's much smarter and she converted into Islam. And then she was like, no, I didn't.
What? She said that?
Yeah, I did not convert.
Daring to correct the violent Jihadi John. That surprised you?
It surprised me a lot. I would not have had the guts to say that. I don't think so.
And Rai says Kayla and another American hostage, journalist Stephen Sotloff, figured out a way to pass letters back and forth, creating a makeshift game of Trivial Pursuit.
Was it dangerous to be moving these letters back and forth?
Of course it was.
But she did it, Stephen did it?
Yeah. You know, if I've been by myself at her place, I would probably say no letters. It's too dangerous.
Back in Arizona, Kayla's parents held out hope that ISIS would treat an aid worker gently, that one of the humanitarian groups she was connected to would help negotiate her freedom. But that did not happen.
No one would claim her, so they assumed she was a spy. And we found out that her fingernails had been pulled out. Her hair had been shaved, and that she had been tortured. And that was just one of the hardest days for me.
And the prospect of a negotiated release grew increasingly unlikely, as the Muellers soon found themselves up against the U.S. policy against making concessions to terrorists.
I firmly believe that the United States government paying ransom to terrorists risks endangering more Americans and funding the very terrorism that we're trying to stop. And so I firmly believe that our policy ultimately puts fewer Americans at risk.
ISIS was making millions of dollars from its kidnapping business. And as hostages from other countries which allowed ransom payments were released by ISIS, they could only say goodbye as they left Kayla behind.
It was a horrible feeling to be released, looking forward to being released, but at the same time leaving someone behind.
Doctors Without Borders negotiated ransom payments for its staff members, Frida, Patricia, and 3 others, but not for Kayla.
It was very sad. It was, I think it was the saddest moment we passed through together.
How did you say goodbye?
In tears.
What'd you say to her?
Stay strong. This will end one day.
What did she say to you?
Nothing.
But as they left, a possible break. The ISIS hostage takers told the women they were now ready to negotiate for Kayla. And a remarkable email back and forth was about to begin between the terrorist holding Kayla and her desperate parents in Arizona. Party night in a college town.
There's just so many people around and out at all hours. There was always something going on.
At Kilroy's Bar in Bloomington, Indiana, students from Indiana University pack the place and then head home in the early morning hours.
You feel very close-knit there. There was never like a question of me being unsafe.
Yet it was shortly after leaving Kilroy's, 5 years ago this month, that 20-year-old Lauren Spierer, a sophomore from New York, vanished off the streets of Bloomington and has not been seen since.
I really just would like to hear this is where you can find your daughter. It's the not knowing what happened to her, where she might be, or, it's unbearable.
But tonight, Lauren Spierer's parents may be getting closer to knowing what happened.
They came from up this direction.
For more than a year, 2020 has been tracking a reinvigorated investigation.
Surveillance cameras.
With the help of former FBI cold case agent Brad Garrett, now an ABC News consultant, retracing her every step.
Last seen actually at this intersection. The last time she was seen alive is exactly where we're standing.
I really just would like to be able to bring Lauren home.
I'm looking, honey.
Lauren Spierer grew up in the New York City suburb of Scarsdale.
What are you going to be?
I'm going to be a princess.
You're going to be.
She's a great kid, high energy, very caring.
Very caring.
Loving.
I love you. You love me. We're a happy family.
She really had a zest for life. I love that.
I know.
That's so Lauren.
Her heartbroken mother and father Charlene and Rob Spierer,
You make me cry, honey.
try now to smile through their tears as they remember the good times. The child ballerina.
Mom and Dad, I just want to say thank you. I'm having an amazing night, and I love you too so much.
The coming of age at her bat mitzvah.
We're proudest of how she handles herself, her boundless potential, and her joy in living life.
You are proud parents.
Yeah, I'm very proud.
So proud.
Very proud.
The call that ended her parents' dreams for Lauren came on June 3rd, 2011.
We were eating dinner and Robbie, the phone rang. I went to answer the phone and Robbie said, Char, Lauren's missing. So it's really heart-stopping, you know?
Lauren Spierer has become a household name.
One of the highest profile missing person cases in America.
We believe that the chances are very great that there was foul play, because otherwise we feel Lauren would have made contact by now.
My first thing is to say to the person that has Lauren or that has harmed Lauren, shame on you. Shame on you.
You're on the search or flyer? Search. Right.
Hundreds of volunteers
Walk up and down the streets, check dumpsters, check alleyways.
joined Lauren's parents,
Make sure you pay attention to the creek area while you're down there.
full of hope she would be found safe and soon.
I came out today just to help look for Lauren, and it's just a lot of massive territory.
They searched abandoned quarries,
We're continuing the search that we started.
dense forests,
So you're in this massive area and you're driving, here's another pull off, let's pull off. And then you get out of the car and then you go walking through these woods and you're calling Lauren's name and you're hoping you're gonna find her laying in the woods somewhere, and it's tough, you know.
Let me be firm in that we're here, still committed to finding her. It's our worst nightmare.
Kardashian and Seacrest now tweeting for volunteers to join the search. A massive search and a $100,000 reward have turned up little.
and then, as a last-ditch effort, police searched the landfill used by the city of Bloomington.
Probably the hardest thing that we had to do in the searches was to go to that landfill.
Yeah.
Stand there, watch them.
The search turned up empty.
I start my every day hoping that today is the day. I go to sleep every night knowing that I have failed and that I haven't. I'm sorry. I haven't done enough. But
after June 3rd, it really started to sink in that this was happening.
11 days and counting since Lauren vanished. The search for Lauren Spierer now stretches into a second month.
This Sunday marks the one-year anniversary of the disappearance of IU student Lauren Spierer.
Today, the missing person posters are all but gone around the Bloomington campus, and the name Lauren Spierer is a thing of the past to many.
So when I say the name Lauren Spierer, it doesn't really ring a bell.
Mm-mm.
There's not really much talk of it anymore, no.
It's old news. I think we should let it go and move on.
But quietly, behind the scenes, the case is very much alive.
We're getting close. I think we're going to solve this.
Former FBI agent Garrett and a team of private detectives hired by Lauren's parents have now turned up new witnesses, leads, and theories.
Everything leads to this house where Lauren was or is.
Garrett started with those closest to Lauren and the young men she was with the night she disappeared.
When something happens to someone, it's usually from their own circle.
Garrett also focused on reports of a white truck in the area that night. The kind of truck driven by this ex-convict.
He might be somebody we need to take a look at.
Regarding the disappearance of Lauren Spierer, do you intend to answer all the questions truthfully?
Yes.
Also in the mix, a flood of tips about the alleged involvement of current and former members of Indiana biker gangs.
Did you shoot her?
No, I didn't shoot her.
You didn't shoot her?
What did you do with her? I don't even know the broad. I told you that. Bye.
And then, in the last few months, Garrett received a set of brand new leads from inside a state prison, claiming that some of Lauren's fellow students saw her die and secretly disposed of her body.
She OD'd. They got scared and drove her down to the Ohio River and disposed of her body.
3 major theories on the board, all being chased. No lead could be ignored, no clue dismissed.
So you have to figure out a way to crack that. And that's what I've been trying to do for the last year.
All coming down to a fateful few moments.
Basically, this mystery is in a block.
Somewhere in this block. And just in this short distance from here down to there.
Literally, you're only talking maybe 100 yards.
It's hard not to get caught up in the energy and everything there. It really is like happy. I feel like
part of the community.
and exactly.
With its Big Ten school spirit, Indiana University seems far removed from the temptations and dangers of the big city.
You just felt like this is what college is supposed to be like.
On move-in day here every fall, the emotional scenes are played out as parents say goodbye, just as Lauren's parents, Charlene and Rob, did in 2009, confident she was in a good place.
I didn't have any qualms about saying goodbye.
Did you have any sense at all that there could be danger there?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
As far as Lauren's parents knew and heard from her roommates, their daughter fit right in and was busy studying for a career in the world of fashion.
She's just bubbly and outgoing, and you just really instantly fall in love with her when you meet her.
But what her parents only later came to learn from investigators is that Bloomington, like many college towns, has its dark side, with students describing rampant alcohol abuse and a thriving drug scene.
Cocaine, Xanax, all types of different drugs, marijuana. Some people dipped into acid.
Seth Parker, now clean, says he was part of that scene.
It was just a whole bunch of college kids that had money and could afford to do the things that they were doing.
Including Lauren Spierer.
Was it distressing to hear that there was this party scene and she was part of it?
I don't think I realized what degree, you know, and it was a little bit of a shock.
In fact, police found a small amount of cocaine in her room after she disappeared.
So drugs, unfortunately, are the key component to this case.
On the night she vanished, Lauren was in full party mode soon after leaving her apartment.
I think she didn't make wise choices that night, but she didn't make herself disappear.
She spent a lot of the evening with a student she had just met, Corey Rossman, who other students would later say described a wild night.
He's like, well, me and Lauren were hanging out, just partying, pre-gaming before we went to Kilroy's watching the game.
They got to Kilroy's around 2 in the morning.
They're only there about 30 minutes. But during that time period, she leaves her shoes and her cell phone in the bar. And I think that gives you some indication about how out of it she may be at this point.
Notably not with Lauren that night was Jesse Wolf, her longtime boyfriend, since high school in New York.
Any rational boyfriend is going to be concerned if you're out with other boys, particularly at 2 o'clock in the morning, potentially drunk in a bar.
So as a veteran investigator, does that raise questions of motive, possible jealousy?
Of course.
When she leaves here, this begins a sort of 2-hour odyssey.
Roughly 2 hours between leaving Kilroy's and when she ultimately disappears.
Lauren and Corey Rossman leave Kilroy's and walk about a block away to her off-campus student apartment in the Smallwood Plaza.
They're going to her room up on the 5th floor of this building, having trouble walking, stumbling. Doors open, they step off the elevator, and there are 4 guys in the hallway.
All fellow Indiana students.
And apparently, they don't like the way Corey is handling Lauren. And Rossman supposedly says something smart to him, and this guy decks him. He goes down.
So Lauren and Rossman leave quickly. It's now about 3 in the morning, and they are heading up this deserted alley towards his apartment a few blocks away.
She's barefoot walking along here. She actually falls down twice in this alley, according to surveillance cameras. He eventually grabs her, throws her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry, and literally carries her the rest of the way to his apartment, which is about a block from here.
She was not cared for in a way that I would want my son to care for another. And that's what kind of gets me, because the circumstances, I think, could have been a lot different had Lauren been escorted back to her apartment.
But instead, they end up at Rossman's place.
They go in here briefly.
Where his roommate later says Rossman got sick.
He vomits on the steps.
And went to bed. The roommate takes Lauren next door to another friend.
It's about 30 feet to Jay Rosenbaum's door here on the left.
Jay Rosenbaum.
Jay sees what bad shape Lauren is in and said, Lauren, lay down on the couch, go to sleep, go home in the morning. And she won't do it. She says, I want to keep going, I want to go. Jay walks her to the door, and he sees her walk up 11th Street. He's the last person we are aware of that sees her alive.
As police begin to suspect foul play, all 3 young men, the longtime boyfriend, the new friend, and the last person who saw her alive, are identified by authorities as persons of interest.
The 3 boys that she was with all hired attorneys very early on, and that created a wall of access for us.
What about Lauren's boyfriend?
He helped with the searches on Saturday and Sunday, but then he left. His parents came to Bloomington and took him away.
What did you make of that?
I thought it was odd.
No witness reported seeing Wolf out that night, and he says he was at home watching the NBA Finals, which ended just before midnight. And then, according to his roommate, he went to bed around 2:30 a.m. Wolf would not agree to be interviewed on camera by 2020, but says he has cooperated with the police and continues to deny any involvement in Lauren's disappearance.
He's the most loving boyfriend you can ask for.
At the time, Lauren's friend said Jesse couldn't have possibly harmed Lauren.
He would never do anything to hurt her.
I'm not suggesting he did anything, but I'm not comfortable that I actually know what he was doing in the early morning hours of June 3rd.
Even more than Wolf, Garrett has questions for Corey Rossman.
There's always been this sort of suspicion around Corey as to, well, did you really end up passing out and going to bed before she disappeared?
I was not the last person with her. This is all I can say. I'm sorry, but I just hope that they find her as soon as possible, and I'm praying for her and her family.
Adding to the parents' anger, they say Rossman was the one friend who refused to talk to them or their investigators. And he claims he lost all memory of what happened after being slugged at Lauren's apartment building.
That punch or punches caused him a temporary memory loss.
Do you buy that?
No, I don't. I think it's a case of self-preservation.
He knows more than he's saying.
I'm not sure of anything, but what I do know is that there's been a complete lack of cooperation. And he was the person that spent the most time with Lauren in the last hours of her being seen.
And he hasn't come forward to try to help?
No, he's resisted.
Corey, Brian Ross from ABC News 2020. Can we talk to you for just a second about Lauren Spierer?
Rossman has denied any involvement in Lauren's disappearance, but declined repeated requests to talk with 2020.
Corey, why won't you talk with Lauren's parents? They just want to ask you some questions about what happened that night. Anything you can say at all?
Property of DC.
What else is under the surface here that we don't know about? I don't know, but I'm not to the point to say he's not involved.
His lawyer says Rossman continues to cooperate fully with police.